My question is to the Minister of Energy and asks, will he implement a nationwide moratorium on new fracking wells until the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment can assure the public it is safe?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, no.
Gareth Hughes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Supplementary. Wouldn't it make sense to wait for the results of the investigation before allowing new fracking wells to go ahead, given the Minister has said in the media, and I quote, the investigation will answer some questions which have been unanswered?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, it didn't make sense to stop using 1080 when the Commissioner was looking into the use of 1080. Consequently, the Commissioner found that the use of 1080 was probably sensible. In the same way, it's a bit silly to stop everything just because the Greens want to stop everything and inquiries are going on.
Gareth Hughes.
To the Minister, why won't the Minister wait for the questions to be answered when the East Coast, Hawke's Bay and Horizon regions will be considering their first fracking wells in those regions shortly?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, hydraulic fracturing has been used in New Zealand for well over 2 decades and appears to have been well managed. That's what I've been advised. We didn't stop the use of 1080 when the Commissioner looked at that. So I think the member is getting ahead of himself, in my view, by asking for a moratorium on hydraulic fracturing, which has been going on for a long time as well.
Gareth Hughes.
To the Minister, given that the Gisborne District Council have admitted they don't have the expertise to regulate fracking and TAG Oil is pursuing what they themselves describe as an aggressive program there, why won't he implement a nationwide moratorium on new fracking wells until the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment can assure Kiwis it's safe?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Because, Mr Speaker, hydraulic fracturing has been undertaken for well over 2 decades in the Taranaki. Successfully, on the face of it, all the information that's put towards me and the expertise in Taranaki, both from industry and from the regulators, such as the Regional Council, and from my officials, can certainly that expertise be transferred to Gisborne should that be necessary.
Gareth Hughes.
Is the fracking issue different to the 1080 issue? And was there a cusp of a massive expansion of 1080 use at the time of the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment's report into that? And given that in the last year we've seen a 170% increase in just the last year alone in new fracking wells in New Zealand compared to the last 18 years, and this government has permitted 4 million hectares of New Zealand land for fracking, why won't he wait until the results are in?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Well, Mr Speaker, hydraulic fracturing is different from the use of 1080. I hope the House understands that. But also, hydraulic fracturing is... Well, I could explain the difference, and actually I offer it to the member that I'm happy to give him a briefing on the difference between the use of 1080 and hydraulic fracturing, should he approach my staff.
Point of order, Gareth Hughes.
Sir, I know flippant answers aren't, I can't point of order on that, but the question wasn't what's the difference between fracking and 1080. It was about the situations and point of time when the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment was investigating both controversial topics.
I invite the member to repeat his question because the answer did get a bit a fair way away from the member's question. I invite him to repeat his question.
Thank you, Mr.
Gareth
Speaker.
Hughes.
Is there a difference between the situation where the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment investigated the use of 1080 and were we then on the cusp of a massive expansion in the use of 1080? And given with fracking we have seen a 170% increase in new wells in the last year, and this government has permitted 4 million hectares of new Kiwi land for fracking, will he wait till these results are in on the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment's investigation?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Mr Speaker, I've made it clear why we are not going to have a moratorium on hydraulic fracturing while the Parliamentary Commissioner investigates this. We'll be very interested in her findings and certainly take them into account. I draw the comparison between the use of 1080 and hydraulic fracturing in the sense that both are claimed to have significant environmental effects, both might have significant use, but it'd be fair to say that while 1080 use wasn't on the cusp of significant use throughout New Zealand, it is in fact used very, very widely in New Zealand. Hard to see how you could actually increase its use. I accept that comparison isn't exactly apples with apples, but I think I've made my point that we can't stop everything just because an investigation is in place.
Gareth Hughes.
Supplementary to the Minister. Given we've seen well blowouts, water contamination and consents being breached right now in Taranaki, isn't it prudent to wait until the results are in so we can answer those questions and make sure we've got regulations and practices to protect our water, to protect our communities and protect our health?
The Honourable Phil Heatley.
Unfortunately, Mr Speaker, whenever the member has put this to the media, to my officials or even independent bodies such as the Taranaki Regional Council, these claims, they have come back with substantial science to say that is not in fact the case, such as water contamination, where the independent body, Taranaki Regional Council, went to Hill Laboratories, which is independent too, did water testing and they found no effects on water quality. And this is the point of the Parliamentary Commissioner's inquiry, and that's why I welcome it, is that she will be able to determine the difference between fact and science and fiction and the Green Party.
Gareth Hughes.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, Gareth Hughes.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to table the Shell Todd Oil Kapuni study from jointly published by the Taranaki Regional Council and Shell Todd Oil from 2007, which showed water contamination from the Kapuni wells.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection.
Point of order.
Point of order, Gareth Hughes.
Sir, I seek leave to table the Chill Petroleum report from 2011, also jointly published with the Taranaki Regional Council, which showed water contamination from those wells as well.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection.